Hi, this is Keith Kern, and you're watching The David Carus Show.
Renaissance man. I'm a Renaissance man, super art like Superman, flying like I'm Peter Pan, see my people and we never land.
What's up and welcome to The David Carus Show. I'm David Carus. I'm going to tell you about some incredible art and artists, and I want to start it with an entertainment icon, Walt Disney. He was born in 1901 in Chicago, Illinois, but when he was 4 years old, his family moved away from the big city to become farmers in Kansas. When he was a teenager, his family moved back to Chicago, and while in high school, he took classes at night at the Chicago Art Institute. He moved to Kansas City, and although he flirted with the idea of being an actor, he decided to pursue a career as a cartoonist. He tried to get work as an artist, but no one would hire him. Finally, his brother Roy was able to get him a job creating advertisements for newspapers and magazines. He soon formed a company with another cartoonist he met, but the company failed. He found a book on animation, and after reading it, with another cartoonist formed another company and struck a deal with a local movie theater that agreed to show his cartoons. His revenue didn't keep up with his expenses, and it wasn't long before Disney's company went bankrupt. He decided to make a new start and move to Hollywood with the help of his brother. With a new company and more cartoons to sell, Disney Brothers Studio was born. It was at this time that Disney came up with his most famous creation of all time, Mickey Mouse. Originally Mortimer the Mouse, Disney's wife came up with the more appealing name of Mickey. Disney made 2 cartoons with Mickey Mouse and couldn't sell them. At this time, like many other cartoons, they were silent films. In 1928, Walt Disney introduced sound to his third Mickey Mouse cartoon, Steamboat Willie, and it was a hit. In a short time, Mickey Mouse surpassed Felix the Cat as the world's most popular cartoon character. Disney began work on a full-length feature film. Everyone thought Walt Disney was crazy, including his wife and his brother Roy. They said the feature would destroy the company and no one would pay money to watch a whole movie of a cartoon. He spent the next 3 years working on his film and almost lost his company. But on December 21st, 1937, the world was given Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The film received a standing ovation from theatergoers and went on to become the most successful film of 1938. Over the next several years, the Walt Disney Studio would produce classic after classic. One day while visiting a park for kids, Disney had an ambitious idea for a theme park, unlike any other, Disneyland. Once again, people said he was crazy and that he'd never make enough money to keep the park open. Disneyland opened on July 17, 1955, and it didn't take long before people realized what Disney had actually created. For the first time in 20 years, Walt Disney was out of debt and was able to fund any project that he wanted. Today, the Walt Disney Company is the largest entertainment company on planet Earth. For a struggling artist that someone once said had no imagination, Walt Disney gave the world nothing but imagination. Okay, it's time for music, and I have one of the greatest albums, if not the greatest album of all time, The Beatles' Sgt. Pepper. In 1967, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band was the 8th studio album from the Beatles. After performing to large crowds of screaming fans that made it impossible to hear their live performances, the Beatles were looking to do something different and so began imagining an album where they could create alter egos. An album with music performed not by the Beatles, but by this fictitious band. John Lennon said most of the songs had nothing to do with this concept and could have been put on any other album, but that didn't stop the accolades from coming and labeling it as one of the first concept albums. The album cover art has become one of the most emulated in history. It features the Beatles dressed in military-styled uniforms standing with around 60 different famous people, including Bob Dylan, Marilyn Monroe, Edgar Allan Poe, and lots of others. Some accuse the album of promoting drug use, and the BBC banned the song Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, claiming that it was code for LSD. Others accuse the Beatles of selling out, cashing in on the hippie, flower-powered drug culture. But none of this stopped fans and critics from giving the album high praise. One critic called it a decisive moment in the history of Western civilization. It won the Grammy for Album of the Year. the first rock album to win the award. To date, it has sold over 32 million copies, and in 2005, Rolling Stone named it the greatest album of all time. The Sgt. Pepper album stands as a testament to artists seeking to create great art for the masses in the midst of almost being devoured by them. There's a reason the Beatles are called the greatest rock band in history. It's because they produced art so powerful as to survive and communicate far into the future. Okay, it's time for movies, and I have one of the biggest blockbusters in cinema history, Titanic. This 1997 film stars Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet, but it was written and directed by James Cameron. The idea for the film came to Cameron because he was fascinated with shipwrecks, and he wanted to dive down and see the actual wreckage of the biggest shipwreck of them all, the Titanic. When he brought the idea to 20th Century Fox, they were really doubtful of the movie, but reluctantly they greenlighted it. Cameron spent months researching historical documents about the crew and passengers aboard the ship, anything and everything Titanic. The filmmaker was determined to give audiences a real experience, and he even hired historians to authenticate the work he was doing. Production costs continued to climb until it hit $200 million, making it the most expensive movie that had ever been made up until that time. The studio wanted to cut an hour out of the movie to make it more affordable and more profitable for them. Cameron didn't budge, but he did make some gestures to the studio so he could make the movie he wanted. One gesture involved the music. Originally, Cameron didn't want to have any singing in any of it, but when he heard Celine Dion's My Heart Will Go On, he decided to include it in the film to make the studio executives happy, and he also figured that it couldn't hurt to have a hit song attached to his film. Lots of people were predicting that the movie was going to do horribly, and that Cameron's movie was going to lose lots of money for the studio. What looked like a potentially huge failure turned into one of the biggest successes Hollywood had ever seen. To this date, Titanic has made more than $2 billion at the box office worldwide. It went on to win 11 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director for James Cameron. Easily one of the greatest movies of all time. It's easy to label this a masterpiece. Okay, it's time for books, and I have a science fiction masterpiece by Robert Heinlein, Stranger in a Strange Land. Published in 1961, it's the story of Valentine Michael Smith, who was born and raised on Mars and comes to Earth for the first time. The idea came from Heinlein's wife, who suggested a twist on the Rudyard Kipling tale, The Jungle Book. Instead of a boy raised by wolves, it'd be a boy raised by Martians. It was an instant hit, winning the Hugo Award in 1962 and became a cult classic. The book is a mix of science fiction, satire, and social commentary, written in large part to challenge the social values of the times. It challenged viewpoints on everything from religion to economics to the afterlife. Stranger in a Strange Land influenced not just the counterculture of the 1960s, but has a legacy that reaches far beyond. It's widely considered one of the greatest works of science fiction. It even introduced the word grok into the Oxford English Dictionary, a word that means to drink, or to comprehend, or to love, or to be one with. It's been referenced in everything from Star Trek to Billy Joel's We Didn't Start the Fire, and it continues to influence popular culture to this day. Without a doubt, it's an incredible story filled with drama, action, and humor, and it does what any great piece of art does. It shifts your viewpoint and makes you look at the world in a different light. Read this book. Okay, I want to thank you for watching. Make sure to click that like button, leave a comment, and more than anything, make sure to subscribe to this channel so you can watch future episodes, and also share this video so other people can watch it and learn what you just learned about these amazing artists doing these awesome things. Okay, now I want to leave you with a quote. This is from The Amazing Spider-Man number 686, with Peter Parker saying, "The world's not dead. Not yet. Know why? Because I still have great power and great responsibility. And that means even if it is literally hell on earth, I keep going. I never give up. And under no circumstances do I ever stop."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.